Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Black Girl Iowa podcast. I'm your host, Emily, and I am really happy right now. It's spooky season, it's fall. The weather is finally starting to calm down here in Iowa and not be so hot. Even though yesterday it was like 90 degrees, but at least today it was only in the 70s, so I can only hope that it gets cooler. But anyway, I've got a really great episode for you guys today. Have some really special guests on with me. But before I talk about the episode, I want to talk about the Black Girl Iowa shop on Etsy. So I currently have 6 items in the shop that is official Black Girl Iowa merch. As you can see, I am currently wearing, if you're looking at the video, I am wearing the crew neck Black Girl Iowa sweatshirt that's in the shop. It is $40. I have some other really awesome things in the shop, including a women's slim fit tee, which is $20, a standard unisex t-shirt, which is also $20. I've got a notebook because you guys all know I'm a journaling girl. That is $13. And then the hooded sweatshirt is $60. And you guys, that hooded sweatshirt is nice. I have worn it a couple of times. I have one. I probably should have put it on for this, but I absolutely love it, and you guys are all going to love it. So a couple of things about the shop. So the shop will remain open between now and October 15th, okay? It is open for pre-order. I have to work with my distributor to get everything sent to me. So please be sure to hit up my shop on Etsy. It is the Black Girl Iowa shop to get your merch, because I'm going to have it open for a small period of time. Depending on how sales go, I might open it up again. But if you do want something, be sure, go pre-order, get it now. All pre-orders will be sent mid-November. Okay. Now let's talk about this episode. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this episode is because a few months ago, I did a blog post and it was called Black Girls Are Exhausted. And it basically speaks to the fact that, like, for me, every aspect of my life, I just feel like I always have to go the extra mile to only get like 10% put back into me, basically. And I have been noticing this overwhelming phenomenon for a long time of men, specifically Black men, making it a point to tear down Black women. I feel like we have just been catching strays in so many different aspects that I'm really just fed up with it. And a lot of it is coming from the sports world. Now, just for some context, you guys, I am a sports fan. And when I say sports fan, okay, I'll be honest. I love the NFL. Okay. I love the NFL. I watch a lot of college football. And I usually on Sundays, I am watching football all day. Monday and Tuesdays, I'm watching ESPN. I'm watching Fox Sports. I'm watching NFL Network. I'm getting my commentary from a lot of different places because I want to make sure that I like the things that I think are kind of being represented a bit. Plus, I do picks every week. And this is just for me personally. I do picks every week. So I want to make sure that I know the depth chart, the actives and inactives, and things like that before I go in to make my picks for the week. So that being said, there has been so much discourse around the WNBA, around just the overall treatment of Black women. In so many different instances, I'm just like, you know what? I want to talk to two people that I know for a fact advocate for Black women. So that is what you're going to hear on today's episode. It really wasn't even an interview. It was more or less just a conversation between friends. And then I will be back at the end with final thoughts. So here we go. All right, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get into today's episode. It's not really an interview. It's more so just a conversation. I have two of my very good friends that I have known, my God, since high school. These two are the reasons why I got a C in gym sophomore year. Totally fine. But they're two very, very dear friends of mine, and they had a podcast, Drinks with Friends. I will be sure to link it in the show notes. I have my boy Ryan, aka That Guy Rye, and the one and only Madison Ray on. So please, gentlemen, say hi, introduce yourselves. Tell my 18 listeners. No, I'm kidding. Tell my listeners a little bit about yourself. Ryan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. It kind of feels good to be back behind a microphone with my extraordinary former co-host there. But no, Emily, like you said, we go way, way back to Roosevelt High School if we're not just worried about doxing ourselves. But no, Emily, you got a special place for me. Like we definitely we go way back, and we've
Yes.
had some real deep conversations about the things we're going to talk about today, about other real life stuff. So no, just I'm happy to be here. This will be fun.
Awesome. Madison, you're up.
Yo, no pressure or anything. Um, yeah, to speak on our relationship, yeah, like, uh, we had kind of a squad of regulars, through those years, like those
Mm-hmm.
familiars. There was like, we have classes together, we kick it together, we eat together, like it's all that kind of just, the difficulty of navigating adolescence and finding folks that like resonate with your perspective, your experience, and just trying to find your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely feel like we were all in that circle together.
Yep.
And some of those friends that we're still friends with, we're still it's still love when we're all in the room and all that kind of stuff. Those things that are like in the formative years, like, and so yeah, there's a
Right.
lot of happy memories for me. There's a lot of like love and trust and all that stuff just like come from such that pure place.
Yep.
Whether it's like, because I still have like, all right, I still have like burnt CDs, like mixtapes that you made me, because
No
like that's,
way,
yeah,
bro.
yeah, yeah,
Shut
and
your
it's like full of
mouth.
like,
No way,
it's like in sync bangers and like,
bro. I
oh
need
my
to see
god, oh
those.
my god, yeah, 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 yeah. No, I still got,
Wow.
because
Let
the thing is they slap.
Man, listen. Let me tell you
Like,
something. The DJ M. John mixtape, you just had to be there.
It's
Like,
true. It was an era.
period. Like all
Yeah.
pirated music.
Oh
yes,
yeah,
oh my
Love it.
god, the quality
Top
shows,
tier.
okay, like some computers died for these CDs to
It really
happen.
did.
Like,
yeah.
Yes,
so yeah,
absolutely.
like, so that's to say that like, yeah, at that point, it's like I describe it as like those play cousins. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's close like family,
Right.
because there's history, there's experience, there's like growth, like knowing you from 14 to even like 18 is such a huge transition. But then also to be able to touch base in our 20s, in our 30s, and so on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, 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 yeah. Like there's something like that's real deep and real significant,
Yeah.
even if it's unspoken. I think that's really
Yes.
special.
Yes,
Facts.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. And I'm just like I remember listening to y'all's podcast back when I was living in Arizona, and man, I never missed an episode. And I would literally be at my desk working and cracking up. Or just it really just like felt like I was in the room in the conversation, but like y'all was like, Emily, shut up, we gotta record. And so I just wouldn't talk. But I was actively having conversations with y'all. And it also like really helped me feel connected because at that time, by the time y'all's podcast came out, I had been away from Iowa for like 7, 8 years at that point. So it was so
Now,
nice to like to hear y'all's voices.
can I give a little
Man,
context?
yes.
So, like, for listeners who don't know about Drinks with Friends or our podcasting lives, just a quick rundown, just so we're all on the same page. Like, we started like using a podcast really as a space for us to like reconnect as adults in a lot of ways. Like, we had a lot of different life experiences, some fallout, some fights, some tension, but
Mm-hmm.
also like once you squash that beef, also like you have to like reintroduce yourself to each other. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
there's that like, all right, so some stuff has happened, some life has gone down, and the man on the other side of this conversation, like, yeah, there's familiarity, but let me catch you up right quick.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
part of that was like facilitating those conversations, but also being able to like give insight to like black men in the Midwest, just to be able to give a voice and a platform to that,
Mm-hmm.
um, to actually in real time, I think, do some of that healing work. as like you're hearing like two lifelong friends just kind of pick up the ball and see what's there, but also then bring along a lot of our other dope friends to that conversation. Whether it's like being able to build new friendships and build new relationships, but also now being like grown ass men in society who are decision makers, who are voters, who are uh, influencers, who are creative, who are help driving the culture of what's going on in
Mm-hmm.
our own backyard. So I mean, there's a lot of like really fun stuff to like be able to like kind of unpack, but also like present and just kind of build a bigger table before like podcasting like really hit like the
Yeah.
sweet spot. Like it was
Right.
like, yo, yeah. So we get together and have some drinks. Sometimes they were adult drinks. Sometimes they were just some coffee and some good conversation. And it's like all organic, unedited,
Yes.
just so you can be there in the room with us as we're kind of messily moving through whatever the topic might be for any given week,
Right.
or
Right.
whatever grievances we need to air.
Man, I personally always love the Marvel grievances. And I also really loved, and then we'll get into the conversation, is how Ryan specifically clocked Drake light years before anybody else did. Like,
He's a
man,
Drake hater. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember when you guys went through the track list for Scorpion, and I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that episode because y'all clocked him a long time ago. And so like the fact that like everything that has transpired over the last like 5 or 6 years, and then boom, Kendrick Lamar, the whole back and forth between them. I
Yeah.
it's
mean,
kind of
No, that
it's kind
that
of
that
funny.
that, that made my petty little heart flutter this whole summer. Like it's
exactly.
been
And
everything
I'm
I needed.
sorry, not
Yeah.
like us, won't get old at all.
Oh,
Never will.
never,
Never will.
never.
Never
Yeah.
will.
I can't wait to hear that shit at the Super Bowl.
Man, oh, it's gonna be top tier.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I'm gonna go bar
So,
for bar in my uncle's living room. Like I don't care. Like
period.
y'all gonna have to hear every single one of these words.
You
The
should
kids are gonna be
really,
right there with me.
y'all should see me when I'm in my apartment by myself, listening to music, drinking wine, a little tipsy, rapping that to George. He is so sick of me. George is so sick of me. He's
I
done.
mean,
He's done. He's
yeah,
over it. He's over it.
that's what
I
they
wanted
do.
to say though, like the funny thing about it, like in the context of like Drake, but also like what's going on with Diddy and everything else, even goes as far back as R. Kelly,
Oh
on the
God.
topic of like protecting folks, is that it's funny because these are all like very public secrets, like all jokes aside,
Ooh,
like these are things that we already knew or had
a
heard about and
public
we're already talking
secret.
about. And it's like
Ooh.
Yeah.
it's the secrets that aren't kept all that well, like I
Mm.
remember there was a nigga that would cut my hair and was telling me about like, yo, I know you into music, so like if Diddy call you, watch your booty. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just getting a
Sir,
lineup.
I'm just
Man,
right.
You
Like,
know
listen.
what I mean?
Oh
can
my.
you not
Okay,
talk
so
about my booty while you're lining up my beard?
okay, cool. So basically,
Thanks.
we are like, I feel like just that alone, that's a whole nother podcast that I'm gonna have to have you
Yeah.
guys back on. Great. All right. Just make me work. That's totally fine. I'm here for it.
And that, kids, is how you
We got
stay
you.
paid and stay booked.
Or just stay booked
We're
because
planting
I'm
seeds
not
out
getting
here.
paid for this.
Hey,
This
we're
is fun.
manifesting. We're
This is fun.
manifesting.
Manifesting,
Manifesting.
manifesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so today I want to talk, and the reason why I have these two gentlemen on the show is because, since I have known them, since we were kids all the way up till now, the one thing they have always done, no matter what, is advocate for the Black experience and advocate for Black women. These two men over the years have always had such high respect for the Black women in their lives, and they've always paid homage to them and protected them. So I wanted to have a conversation about basically how Black women are not protected. I wrote a blog a while ago, and it was basically like Black girls are exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted in the workplace. I'm exhausted in the dating world. I'm exhausted being a millennial, knowing that there are certain things that my parents were able to achieve, like buying a house, that I might not ever be able to do. I'm exhausted with high gas prices, inflation, just a unsurmountable debt that I'll probably never pay off. But in addition to that, I am exhausted at all of these instances where Black men specifically, do not protect Black women. And so that's why I wanted to have these two guys on. But before I kind of get to that, I do have just a few little facts that I want to just run down real quick. So, first of all, in the United States of America, according to Pew Research Center, as of 2022, 47.2 million Black people live in the U.S., and that is of multi-race, single, and Black Hispanic. Okay. 26.1% of Black adults aged 25 and older, it's about 7.8 million, have earned at least a bachelor's degree. Of that, 28% of those are Black women. Okay. And 22% are Black men. Black women have been touted as being the most educated group in the United States, far beyond reaching a bachelor's degree, but also getting their master's and PhDs. In addition to that, Black men are more likely than Black women to be married, but 1/6 of married Black adults, about 17%, are married to someone who isn't Black. 21% of those are men, 13% of those are women. Okay. So I think the first thing I just want to get off right off the bat is, and me and Ryan have already talked about this, you can date outside your race and still be pro-Black. Okay. You absolutely can. My issue is, especially in this instance, when Black men make it a point to essentially tear down Black women to elevate the race that they are dating. I'm really tired of that. Okay. In addition to that, the examples are almost infinite of the times that Black men have been vocal in not protecting Black women. Okay, we have seen it recently with the discourse between Fuhad and James and the interview that they did with Andrew Schultz. We've seen it with the discourse of sports pundits pitting Caitlin Clark and Black WNBA players against each other. We've seen it time and time again. And I really want to open up this conversation before we get into these specific examples, and really pitch it to you guys. As you were growing up, I feel like this wasn't something that you had to be taught. You just innately did it. So, based on your experience of being Black men in Iowa, why is it important for you specifically to protect Black women and their experiences and their stories?
Go first, or want me to go first?
If
All
you
right.
got the words,
Well,
speak them, bro.
yeah. I mean, really, what it comes down to the fact that I love my mom. Like, you know, like it's really as simple as that. Growing up, and Madison and I have some similar upbringing, only children, single parent. Watching them having to go through all of the things that you're still talking about being exhausted about now, 30 years later from the time I was a child. Like, especially seeing her do it by herself, having to figure out how to make sure that I was fed, clothed, how there was gas in the car, I was this, that, and the other. And knowing that I didn't want to do anything to make her life hard. Right. And so then when you grow up and you see and you interact with these women out here, like I feel like so many more couples would be happier, so many more individuals would be happier if we went in with the idea of not making this person's life hard. Right? Like, do we want their life to be better because of my presence, or do we want to make it more difficult for them? Right? And I think that goes hand in hand then with protecting Black women. Like, you already are up against so much. Like, not only are you up against the whole racism aspect of living in America, but you're also up against the sexism aspect of living in America. Like, you need that extra bit of protection and shelter. Need might not be the right word, but you inherently deserve it. And like, I absolutely, like, why not me be the one to provide it, right? Like, thinking about like my mom and my grandmother, who lifelong married to my granddad. He was very great at that. Like, I had some really solid examples of people and how to go about doing so. But like, I think that's what you were talking about. Like, it's within you. Like, it's something that you need to do. Like, and I don't like feeling bad about myself. Like, I don't want to embarrass my mom, right? I don't want to embarrass my grandmother, my aunts. Like, I don't want to like go out there and have something get back to them. Like, oh, Ryan did this, because I don't want to hear about it. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
even that should be enough. Like, you would think that all these black men who are out here, they are belittling and talking down on black women. Like, do you not have one in your life that loves you that's not going to call you on this? Like, because
There's that.
why are you out here just making like making your mama look bad? Like, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I can't understand that. So
Right. Right.
yeah,
Madison?
that drives a lot of it. That
Yeah.
drives so much of it. It's just not wanting to, like, I don't want to embarrass my mom, like,
Right.
straight up. So,
Right.
Yo, I second that. You know, I mean, he's spilling the tea on it, but like I mean, that's real. Like, I love my mom. Like, who doesn't? But like, when it's just, you know, it's just a two-person struggle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there is that bonding. I think that informs it. But also, I want to speak on like us growing up together, being so similar. Meant there was also like the village of black women to plug into, right?
yeah.
Like, so that his mother has the same kind of like influence in my life, right? Like his grandmother has been a presence, his aunts, you know, like that's how it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We come up together, we you know, birthday parties, sleepovers, and all the rest. It's just natural that there's just that exchange of like there's the bonding, but also those lessons, you know, which I think come from a deeper community place. That it's like, no, the grown-ups are all responsible, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for you. So like, if you're out of line, trust that somebody's
Yeah.
gonna come and snatch you up,
Right.
and like there is an inherent permission, but also the respect that is also given to an elder. So that to say that like coming up in and around other black families. You know, it's like you see
Mm-hmm.
those same lessons kind of being imparted, or those same expectations of like, what does it mean to be a man? You know, the role that you need to play.
Right.
I think like on a personal note, you know, growing up in a household where domestic violence was present, you know, there is also the space of like having like not only like survive it, navigate it, but the lessons learned to make sure that you break those kinds of cycles and those kinds of habits.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
you know, I think the natural thing of I want to protect my people, but it's also like, how do we learn to do better so that it just becomes a non-issue. Like we used to do that, but not over here. We don't. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the
Yeah.
wisdom I think of this, like be the change.
Yep.
Like don't expect somebody else to go get that for you.
Mm-hmm.
My mother always taught me that like what you want to see out in the world starts at home. And if you can do it at home, then you can take those lessons out into the world with you. Like, how can you hope for world peace when you ain't got peace of mind, you know, where you
Mm-hmm.
lay your head? Like, it's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
So like, go be the change. And so like, you know, being blessed as a large, strapping, big chested, large shouldered man, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, it's no, I'm saying, but like, understand that like, you
No,
know,
your presence
like
matters.
levity
Your
aside, but it's
presence
like,
is in and of itself.
you play
Yeah.
protector. You play
Yeah.
protector. Like that is what's asked of me. Like I understand that that's like the position to play, and that
Mm-hmm.
like there's times for me, and there's times for me to like step back and like you know be dad, be protector, be provider, whatever
Right.
that means. Like you got to show up and play your part in the whole in the whole game. So
Yeah.
I think that's just informed by a lot of those experiences.
Yeah. And, I think you two also touched on something. And first of all, I have heard, first of all, the way we all talk about our mothers is just top tier. Like my mom is my hero. Ryan, your mom is amazing. And man, them praline cupcakes that she made for Brittany's wedding, I still think
Oh
about
yeah.
them. Okay.
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
think about them. And Travis, your mom, and the fact that she is not only shattered the glass ceiling in her profession, but she made sure to bring other people along with her. And so I think the thing that I've heard you guys touch on is something that I think a lot of these instances that we're going to talk about, people forget. And I have seen this also in my experience, is that first of all, people forget that we're human. Second of all, people
Mm.
forget that we're female, that we are wives, daughters, mothers, we're friends, we're aunties, we are cousins. We are so much more to other people than most people think. And it's frustrating that we don't get protected and we're not seen as human. But yet, when something happens to someone else, all of a sudden we're the nurturer, right? You
Yeah,
know,
that's
before,
programming. I think that's straight programming. Like,
yeah, you know, like, cause think
no,
about it. Before Kamala Harris became the presidential candidate, wasn't Drew Barrymore called her Mamala and said that this is what the
mhm,
country needs? Girl, what? Like,
yeah,
it's one of those things that people don't want to see us for who we are, but yet we are the ones that have to basically mother and take care of everyone, you know. But I think what you guys have done is made sure that your mothers were seen and viewed and respected by you as being more than just your mothers. Can you guys kind of talk a little bit about that, about the importance of humanizing Black women to understand why they need to be protected?
yeah. Maybe I'll go. Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. Like, kind of goes deeper into what you were saying, where Black women are they're inherently seen as stronger, right? Like, and it's because, and like when I say programming, it's because like from the time that we were young, any kind of like media that you've looked at, like whether it be from a white lens or a black lens, like has been from
Mm-hmm.
the white lens, it's like the mother, like the black woman has been the nurturer, the mammy, like the nursemaid, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be, like literally taking and protecting these like little innocent like white lives from the time that they're brought into this world and making sure that they're okay. And there might even be that like stern like motherly vibes of like keeping them in line, telling them what is and isn't okay to do, like as far as just treating other people, right? And like you're raised up to that until you get out in the world, and then you're just this second class citizen who's supposed to just take care of the babies or
Right.
cook the dinner or do whatever the else there is, right? uh and so to see somebody that like is out there in the world and treat it like that, like to then have to come home and like again, like, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, but you don't want to add to that burden, right? Like you're already expected to go out and make everybody else's day okay, right?
Mm.
You're painted in media as the one who's supposed to make everybody be okay, and you're the like even to this day, like people talk about like, oh, there's no better feeling than when the black lady calls me honey, right? Like like you're out here and you're supposed to be making sure that everyone is okay
Yeah.
before you're okay. And like that's really what it comes down to is like you're this person that I care about, like I need to make sure that you're okay when the rest of the world doesn't really care, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
just want you to do what can you do for them. And it's like no, like you shouldn't have to wear that hat all the time.
Right.
And so like you don't even necessarily think of it as protection. It's just like you don't have to be strong all the time. You're always painted as a strong, independent person, and that's not like nobody can be that 24/7, and it's unfair to ask
Right.
anybody of that. Like,
Right.
so
You
yeah,
know what's crazy? Every year on December 31st, I pray to God to not make me one of his warriors.
that's real. That's real.
And
That's
here
real. Hey,
we
bro, can
are.
I coast? Hey, can I just coast for a couple
And
months?
here we are. With everything that I've been through, especially like over the last 3 years, right? With now, mind you, I don't have no kids. Okay. I have a dog. That's it. But over the last 3 years, you know, I've gone through a divorce. I have started grad school. I have faced a lot of adversity in the workplace, and navigating my way through higher education on the career front. Not to mention, too, you know, I'm in my single girl era, and I went through a domestic situation. You know,
Mm.
and the fact that all I hear is Emili, you're so strong. You're powerful. You're this. It's one of those things where I'm really starting to ask myself, like, when do I just get to when do I just get to hit pause? You know, because for
Yeah,
me, for going through my situation and then having to navigate that, I didn't really have an option to lay down and wallow. I lay down and wallowed for 24 hours, and then I needed to get an apartment. I needed
the business.
to,
Yeah,
you know, get back to business. How much money do I have in savings? Okay, cool. I can do this. I need to move out of this house. You know what I mean? Like all of those parts are still moving. And I couldn't really rely on nobody else. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like my family helped me out. My cousin let me stay with her for a couple of weeks, and her husband were fantastic in getting me, you know, into my apartment and all that other stuff, you know? But like, I think the world stops for certain women, those women just don't look like me. And that's been like a really frustrating part. And so that's why I say, like, I'm gonna pray on December 31st again. Like, look, God, it's been 3 yees. Pick
Chill.
somebody else. You know what I mean?
I think he needs a turn.
Anybody. Anybody but me, okay? I get it. Jeez. Did you have something you wanted to add, Madison?
I mean, this man said everything I was like thinking for the
Yeah.
most part.
He has a
However,
tendency to do that.
let me add my own little seasoning, and just add my own kind of experience to it. You know, like, I don't know. It's kind of unfair because I also feel so incredibly blessed by all the Black women in my life. Like
Mhm.
every little come up I've had, every little piece of something that's meant anything, facilitated by a Black woman. You know what I mean? Um, and that's a really powerful thing. And so it does feel like damn, there is a magic there, right?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? That like I ain't shit without, the Black women that make that happen. Whether it's the right encouragement, sometimes it's like financial things, sometimes it's spiritual things, like whatever it is, it's like that thing of like, I got you. Um, and part of that is like, there is something, if you talk about programming, there's also that space of like, just as we've been programmed to see you as nurturers, like Black women have also been programmed, to protect Black boys. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yep.
Specifically to keep an eye out for us, because we are in a system that can so viciously alter our lives and take them away, and not even apologize.
Right.
So that to say that like I have felt the protection of that love and that magic. And so I think for me is not necessarily trying to challenge or demystify the thing, rather that I feel like the debt of gratitude is to protect that magic. If that's what it's going to be, then let's do it like ethically. Let's do it
Right.
responsibly. Let's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, show up, that there is, to Ryan's point, like, yes, the human being on the other side being able to uh, allow rest and celebrate. Like actually, my homie Alan, we used to have this talk. Like, why do we always got to be excellent all the time? Like, I advocate for Black mediocrity. Like, let me just be okay at a thing. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, how many successful white counterparts have I seen be okay and make
Bro,
5 times as much as I make
let me
being
say it
okay at a thing?
again.
Like, have you noticed how many men in Hollywood all look the same? If you lined them up, you couldn't pick them out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because they all get to just be okay. But we all got to be like tip top
Yep.
1% of the 1% of the 1% to get a piece.
Yep.
And so, I think that thing is to just have dignity and show respect. And part of that just comes in the form of protection, the best way
Right.
I know.
Right.
To speak more personal.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. It would be interesting to understand the concept of Black mediocrity. I don't even know what that would look like, but
Like, can I
interesting.
just be okay?
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so I want to change gears a little bit because again, one of the reasons why I want to have this conversation is because I am so tired of people with microphones disrespecting Black women. So I want to run through a couple of examples that I have pulled, not even really from the internet. I just know that they happened because, thanks to Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, all of these things have definitely been out there, and they all have cultural significance in my opinion. So a couple of things. So first and foremost, we have one of the most recent situations with podcasters Fuhad and James from Shits and Gigs podcast. They had went on to Andrew Schultz podcast and basically allowed Andrew Schultz to say some pretty disrespectful things that basically stereotyped Black women into being violent, in reference to the Black wife effect. We have Emmanuel Acho, Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, and a host of others blatantly arguing and basically pitting Black WNBA players against Caitlin Clark. There was that time that Shannon Sharp had the audacity to say that Beyonce can't move the needle like Taylor Swift in a comment from his Nightcap podcast from January of 2024. That time that Terrell Owens decided to speak out and say that he doesn't date Black women because they teased him when he was in school. Sorry. That one alone. And again, I had said this to Ryan. That one specifically I thought was hilarious because Chad Ochocinco let my guy cook. He was like, I'm not touching it. I'm not agreeing to it. I'm not doing anything. And it was top tier.
Yeah.
Speak your truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And then last but not least, Emmanuel Acho, who I personally, I have never enjoyed his commentary. I mean, the guy, I'm not going to go there, but he made some really disrespectful comments about Angel Reese after she pleaded with the media before entering the WNBA draft about how hard it has been the last year being her. Okay. In a moment where she was vulnerable. And as per usual, he shit on it. And then, we have all of the TikToks where men just make it a point to say how much better other women are than Black women. I mean, the list goes on and on. So what we're going to do based off of those examples, I'm going to let you gentlemen pick. Is there one specific one that you guys want to talk about? Or is there a reason why this is happening so frequently that it's almost like every other day we are hearing another comment or conversation or situation?
I mean, I think there's a broad strokes approach that I think addresses a lot of this stuff, and I think that might be the interesting thing to kind of chop up here. I don't know. Okay. I'm just throwing that out on the table.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with it. Because right. I think it's two big issues. Number one, it's low hanging fruit. Right? Like the media is to a place now where for a lot of this, like Black women are one of, if not the most like powerful demographic as far as what can happen with their support or their lack thereof, right? And so for some of this, like particularly in the sports world, like Black women have always been at like a cultural disadvantage. You know what I'm saying? Like you can take that to like Venus and Serena, right? Like anything like that where you have like a Black woman in a space of physical excellence, like is counter to seeing them in that role of being the nurturer or being like the provider. Like when you have someone who is out here physically dominant, not backing down from anybody, showing how excellent they are. Like I think it comes from a place where people feel the need to like humble them, which is of course horribly backwards mentality. But like also low-hanging fruit in the sense that like I could talk about this demographic and people are going to jump on it because you have Black women who are so sick and tired of being targeted when they don't bother anybody, they don't do anything to anybody to cause any problems, right? And so it's like, why would you want to pick at me? Like, you know what I mean? Like it really is, it's low-hanging fruit. And then like with the whole idea of media right now and everything needing to be like, there is no kumbaya in the media. People have to fight about something, right? Like they have to have something that they can argue about because that's what gets clicks, that's what gets views, et cetera, et cetera. It's just really, to me, it's just sad, and it shows the state of like the media where like your Stephen A's, your Shannon's, your all of these people who are like just actively pitted against like their own people, right? Like you can't be on here and talk about Black excellence. Like even now, of course, like women, but like, and I liken it to the NBA, but like when Steve Nash won those MVPs, that shit wasn't deserved, you know what I'm saying? But like people had to come through and be like, now wait a minute, you Negroes are getting too uppity. We gotta calm down. And then
that's the uppity Negro effect.
Right? And like that's completely unacceptable to this day. Like that goes against everything that we're taught, you know, in every facet of life. And so then to see women who now, like, women are becoming a much larger demographic for viewing sports in general. There are more women that are watching the NFL than there ever have been before, watching the NBA, women who are into soccer now, right? So like you have now this super powerful demographic, and it's like, well, we have to acknowledge the fact that they're here, but how can we make it like entertaining? Like, what can we do? And so then it's like, oh, well, here's some low hanging fruit, because you're either going to have the people who are going to avidly protect Black women and everything that they stand for and recognize like the love and everything that they've always been given by them. And then you're going to have the ones where it's like, well, what's so special about them? Right? Like, I don't understand. Like, and that then devolves into, well, they're not special, or they're no better than the other one, or, oh, look at this white woman, like, not to shout her out, but Caitlin Clark, who is a phenomenal player, but so is Asia Wilson, so is Cheryl Swoops, so are all these other women that have come for years and years before her. But now you got like a little corn-fed white girl who is like the second coming, you know? And so people are going to do whatever they can to cape for that, which for what? Like, and even if you do, you don't need to, kind of going back to what Madison Ray was saying, where it's like, you want to be the change you see in the world. My mom always taught me, like, you don't have to dim somebody else's light to make yours shine brighter, right? Like, so what's the purpose? Like, what do you really gain from this? And like, sadly, in this day and age, it's what pays. Like, and
Yeah.
that is a whole new level of pathetic, you know?
Yep.
So,
I agree.
Yeah, I think you have to address, I think, like the big ones, uh, sexism,
Mhm.
racism, and capitalism, right? And the intersection of those things and how those actually drive. I think it requires the acknowledgement, because a lot of this stuff, some of these personalities can get away with saying those, like, oh, it's for entertainment. I'm on TV. I've got a
Mhm.
podcast. I've got a platform, and part of that is the entertainment. To the point of like, oh, it gets clicks, outrage marketing. I can say these inflammatory things, but like there's also like the freedom of speech thing to hide behind. It's just show business. We say ridiculous things because that's what our audiences also want to see. But of course, then it also makes you ask, though, then why does the audience want to see that?
Mhm.
You know, um, just as much as I think there's always like that counter swing. Like
Mhm.
we had the Me Too movement, but then that was also followed with some of the most restrictive uh, laws and bills passed against women's bodies.
Man.
Like
yeah.
there's a counterbalance to these things, right? If we have social progress and movement, there's always the adversary that will push back twice as hard, just as the pendulum swings. I
Mhm.
think there's a kind of a law to that. There's a gravity to it. And so, if we had this period of, Black Lives Matter and how we protect Black boy joy and Black girl magic and all this, there's
Mhm.
also going to be the pushback to go, well, fuck them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as
Yeah.
blunt as that is, right? Like,
Yep.
oh, like y'all are so special. They're not. Y'all, like, just as you can see, uh, so unabashedly, folks on a political spectrum, that are so anti-immigrant, but it's a certain
Mhm.
kind of immigrant.
Mhm.
It's an anti-blackness. It's a, like, even the fact that you have someone like who is as qualified as Vice President Harris in this position. Um, there's this thing about like even other black people like wanting to demean what they perceive her blackness to be.
Mhm.
Because that just goes to the program, like that misogyny, that racism, and ultimately like what business, whatever that means, is.
Mhm.
Like there's that kind of diatribe. There's always going to be that kind of conversation that pushes back just because, oh, you're making progress. Well, I adamantly disagree or whatever, and
Right.
it
Be
comes up in
humble.
those kinds of ways, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is an agenda at work in some spaces. In others, it's just I'm trying to entertain an audience and I'm just
Mhm.
trying to make my dollars. And uh, as as simplistic as it may sound, and I don't mean it to sound dismissive, I also subscribe to like I just turn it off. Like I have every right to participate or not. And
Yeah.
if you serve a ball my way that I have no interest in throwing, then like the game's over. And it's like to me it can be that simple of like, oh, I'm just not hearing you and I'm not gonna entertain, your toxicity to even like permeate where like my life, my mission, my whatever's at.
Mhm.
So I think there's some of that too that like not to be like that personal responsibility talk, that kind of shit. It's not that. I think it's just a matter of like, uh, do we have the courage or the
Hmm.
discipline to turn it off,
Yeah.
put it away, and
Yeah.
choose not to engage with those? Because if they have no audience, then surprise, surprise, there's no money. If there's no money,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden a lot of this stuff starts to evaporate because like that low hanging fruit that you were speaking about, like suddenly isn't available.
Right.
Um,
Right. And ultimately, they're just going to have to talk about something else,
right,
you
right,
know?
and exactly,
Like,
and there'll be something
yeah.
else to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. They'll have to actually talk about something else. Ryan, were
and
you going to make another
yeah,
point? I'm sorry.
no, no, no,
No, I was just listening. I
pass the
was
ball.
agreeing with what he was saying there. Like, yeah, I was agreeing with what he was saying. Like, you're
Yeah.
right. You don't have to engage in it. But then too, like even when you choose not to engage in it, like then that kind of is you stepping away from the responsibility of having to
Mhm.
protect some of these people, right? Because if you are refusing to engage in it, that's cool. But then you do just have these swaths of people now who are getting attacked with nobody on their side. So even if they don't engage with it or that choose not to actively listen to it, doesn't mean it's not brought to their doorstep. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
and then it's like, well, what are we doing? And for me personally, I would rather be like, I don't know, I'm pretty like perpetually online, just like every other millennial, but I'm also like insulated from the whole group think of it. Like I'm
Mm.
comfortable enough in myself to form my own opinions. And
Yeah.
so for me, I would rather be informed even about the ugliness so I could argue it. Again, I
Mhm.
enjoy arguing. I'm a combative individual. I don't shy away from none of that shit. So like I enjoy that aspect of it. Like, yeah, you go ahead and spout your dumb shit, and I guarantee I'm gonna be able to pick it apart, right? Like that part is fun for me. So
Right.
I think it just kind of gets it comes down to choosing how you want to protect your peace,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
um, that and what that means for you. So,
Yeah.
but
And
I
I
agree
think,
with you in the sense that like I will turn it off. Like I'll just log off. Like I can only take so much Twitter before I'm like, all right, bro, it's getting a little cesspool in here. Like
right.
I gotta go. So
Right.
I absolutely get that part too.
And that's really like how I am with like TikTok. And I think one of the reasons why too a lot of my examples are from the sports world is because I am heavily vested into the sports world. So, for the next 20 weeks, I am fully invested in the NFL. So every Monday and Tuesday, I am watching First Take. I am watching Pat McAfee. I am, that's all my TikTok feed is just really all of this information about sports media. And when you are looking at all of this stuff about football, you're also getting information from other sports. So that's where a lot of stuff with the WNBA is coming in, and the MLB and all of these other entities. And me and Ryan were talking prior to the show, and that I have a lot of respect for the WNBA. I was really invested in the WNBA when I was a kid, when I thought I was going to be the next Cheryl Swoops standing at 5'1", 118 pounds. I thought I was the next point guard for the Houston Comets. And so I remember watching all of those games. I remember watching their three championship runs, and when that team dissolved, that's basically like when I stopped watching it. But the number one thing that I will never say is that the WNBA isn't valuable or it hasn't ever been interesting. It is. It's just for like me right now, like my chosen sports media is either pro wrestling or the NFL. But hearing all of this commentary and discourse about Caitlin Clark and Dejanay Carrington and all these other people, it it's one of those things where it's like, love Caitlin Clark. She's a hometown girl, so she's right from where we are. But at the same time, I can see the writing on the wall. I can see what everyone else is doing, and it's really disrespectful and it hurts. And that's why, it's almost like, as a Black woman, I think a lot of the times when things happen to Black women in public, we all feel it in private. You know, we feel that pain. We understand. We've been in those situations where something happened by accident, but we're being told that it was intentional. And so I guess like the next thing that I kind of want to go to, and then we can probably like wrap up with some final thoughts here, is just for you all, why is specifically your advocacy so important? So for Ryan and Madison to wake up every day and see these things happening, whether it be, I'm going to go ahead and post a comment, or, I'm going to make sure that I am loving on Black women and the experiences and paying homage to the women that helped me get to where I am. Why is yours individual advocacy so important?
For this point in my life, as now a 38-year-old man, I have a daughter. Like, I have a little, brown skin, curly hair, beautiful child. And I know that she's gonna have to deal with so much ugly in the room, right? Like
Mm,
I know, you can every time you turn around and you look at the fact that there's literally legislation about her body and what it's going to be when she's an adult, and you're gonna have to deal with the fact that you have this whole she's gonna have to navigate dating and finding a partner someday, right? And then she's gonna have to deal with going into the workplace and people automatically thinking that her ideas aren't as good because she's a woman. Like, I need to show her that there are people that are going to allow her to exist without having to go above and beyond in every instance. Like, kind of going towards what Madison was saying as far as mediocrity. Like, it's okay to be okay, and as long as
mm-hmm,
I'm here, you're gonna be okay.
mm,
And no matter what kind of ridiculousness that you're gonna see out there, not everybody's gonna think of you like that. Like, they're gonna know that you're capable. They're gonna know that you're more than being a mother. They're gonna know that you are intelligent and you are not afraid to speak for yourself, because you're always gonna have somebody that's got your back. Like, say whatever you want to these motherfuckers. Like, I don't care, because I'm always gonna be in your corner.
right, right.
I'm never as long as I'm here. I'll tell you a story. There was this little boy she liked, this little boy named Jace. And to this day is fuck Jace. I said that today. But it was her little second grade little boyfriend or whatever. And first off, Jace got held back. He should have been in third grade, so he's already dumb, which is a step down in my book.
Man.
Just
Okay.
saying. But they're at my house playing outside one day, and he said, "No, you're gonna do what I'm gonna do, what I want to do, or I'm not gonna be your boyfriend anymore." And I snapped on this 8-year-old boy, Emily. I really I just happened to catch that part of the conversation, and I admonished this kid like he was my own. Like, don't you ever in your little raggedy ass life, is that how the adult, is that how your father talks to your mother or her boyfriend or whatever? And
Right.
if so, that's on, she deserves more respect than that. What are you're, as long as I'm breathing, you're not going to talk to my baby like that. I don't care who you are. And so then I left, went on about my business, and I come back home, and they're in the driveway, and Jay starts riding his bike down the road, down the sidewalk. And I'm like, I pull it in. Bria's like, well, Jace thinks you hate him now. I'm like, I don't hate him. He just needs to watch his mouth. And so Bria yells out, you can come back. Just watch how you talk to me. And I'm like, and that's how I know I'm doing my job, right? You can be around as long as you treat me with some respect. So I know that I'm doing what I need to do as her father. And that
Yeah.
is enough to make sure that, I don't know, I want all women to feel safe in my presence. I don't want to be, again, as a large bearded Black man, even beyond the whole color aspect of it. I never want to be the dude that women are choosing to bear over. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But I'm always gonna take that extra step to protect those that look like my baby, like my mom, like my aunts, like you,
Right.
because there's so many people that are out there in the world that will just take the opportunity to knock you down a peg because they can, and I never
Right.
want to be that person, right? So
Mm,
I'll do whatever I can to make sure that you know that at least around me, you
mm,
don't have to you don't have to wear that suit of armor all the time. It's okay to just be who you are, right? And I'm not
yeah.
gonna think less of you for it. So
Right. Right. And I've met your children, and I met your daughter. She was little,
yeah,
and she would absolutely say that
yeah.
at the top of her lungs.
Teens
You
is
better just
fearless.
watch how you talk to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it.
Well,
Absolutely. Madison?
Solid, solid. Um, I think I've always kind of thought of it. Life is, we put the effort in to make our little corner a little bit nicer than we found it. You know, and sometimes your corner's a bit bigger, as you get to grow or as more influential as you become or whatever life has for you, your corner can change. But, I think it's like just being responsible for the things that are just around us, right?
Hmm.
So like, I never see it as like an important thing. It's just like a thing to do. It's just like a life thing. It's like you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, and it's like, and you try to make your little corner of the world just a little bit nicer.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think part of that is just by action, through compassion, through uh, mindfulness, through patience, through gratitude, through generosity, like those things, like those are the things like I can be responsible for,
Hmm.
and those are the things I can express or show. Like when people get into a situation, I'll speak to a story that like I thought of when I knew this was the topic. I thought of immediately, and I thought Ryan might bring it up, but I'm glad he didn't, so I can't. Um, when we were doing our podcast, we were having lunch with a black woman in an
Hmm.
African restaurant, and we're just have a little food, have a little drink, have a little conversation, and right outside of the restaurant there is a little traffic collision, and
Mm.
it's a guy on a motorcycle and a woman in a car, and of course when the thing happens, you don't really see who's who until then you start to see it's a smaller black woman and an angry white man,
Mm.
right? And not knowing what the situation is, the immediate response from the three of us inside this African restaurant is, let's just step outside for a second.
Right.
Not to just gawk and just be like, yo, that's some crazy. I hope, but just to step outside, just to be there. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we're gonna be out there. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and like we'll
She's
work
Right.
it
gonna
out.
walk away from this. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah.
right. But that's exactly it. That's exactly it. That you show up and find the courage to just, I'll go outside.
Hmm.
We'll go outside. Oh, is there a problem out here, sir?
Yep.
What's going on? Just by being present, just by, like wanting to be of service and be helpful
Hmm.
to everybody in that situation, that it
Hmm.
turns into there's a peaceful resolution, hopefully on the other side of that. And if it isn't, then we have each other's back,
Right.
you know? And so part of that, I think, is like not necessarily seeing it as just like an important thing to do. It's just like a habit that you build, it's just like a thing that you do.
Mm.
I think it's a sign of like the character that I think both he and I want to be as men and what we want to represent, and the legacy that we leave, I think
Mhm.
as we get older, I think that's something to be more mindful of.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I've been able to wear many hats. I've been very blessed in that, like whether it's been as a father, as a teacher, um, you know, being able to serve on different boards. Like I did my time with the Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence,
Mm.
uh, you know, and being able to engage with those white women in
Mhm.
those spaces, that they had done so much work to advocate for certain laws and policies, to then realize 10 years later how much harm they were doing to black and brown communities when they
Mhm.
put up these zero tolerance laws,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
They thought they were doing good work. I'm not saying they didn't do good work,
Mhm.
but at what cost?
Yep.
And that in recognizing that it's time to do better and be better and also do the reparative work for the work that they had done,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Required different voices in the room, and
Mhm.
to be able to like be a part of that conversation and be a part of working to do that legislation,
Mhm.
to understand that like, yeah, just locking up black dudes like isn't necessarily like the solution, and
Right.
just throwing them in jail just cause to teach them a lesson. Like sometimes what you find out is that their partners whom they've been abusing don't want that to happen to the person that they loved either.
Mhm.
That
Yep.
like harm to the other side is not what healing actually looks like.
Mhm.
Like that you can be free and you can go heal and do that work and grow and do better and still show the same love and compassion, that like there is a person that I love on the other side of that monstrous behavior,
Right.
and that they deserve the right to rehabilitate themselves and be better.
Mhm.
Throwing them in a prison system isn't actually doing anybody any favors.
Right.
These are things that like you show up for. You have to
Mhm.
show up for. Like you have to be willing to pick up that baton and carry it. Like when I was younger, I used to think that like, oh, someday when I have means, I can go be an activist or I can go do good work if I just
Mhm.
have the money, or if I, you know what I mean, or if I
Right,
just
right,
have the power or influence.
right.
But it was one of my really good friends, Dominique Morgan, uh, trans rights activist, prison reform activist, living her best life in Atlanta.
Hmm.
She taught me through her example that the actual work is just showing up.
Right,
Like, give what you have. Like, that's the gift. Whether it's your
right.
time, whether it's your attention, sometimes it's your body. Just being
Hmm.
present and being in the conversation. That is what activism looks like.
Right.
You just have to be willing to find it in your own spirit to go do it and find the courage to show up.
Hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
as easy as that, but at the same time, it can be a tough boulder to push up the hill. But I think the work is worth it, and that's just
Right.
speaking for one man.
Right, right. And and I think that definitely brings me to my last question before we wrap up. You mentioned something, Madison, about doing the work, but also being ready to do that work to understand why the advocacy matters, right? So, going back through our examples, if you two still were doing your podcast, and if there was something, a nugget of information, just something for these people that we have talked about to think about before they make these type of comments, if you had the opportunity to talk to Shannon Sharp, Stephen A, Fuhad and James, if you had the opportunity to talk to them about the behavior, what would you say to them?
I really specifically want to speak to James and Fuhad. Because
Ooh,
quite frankly, they're really just like the UK version of what Madison Ray and I were, and they just happen to blow up. So whoever's behind shits and gigs, if y'all want to have some less problematic, dark skin, light skin energy that can still put in the work, hit us up. We'll take the money
period.
for it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
specifically to them, um, seeing their like Masquerade, I don't know if you were like basically what they did is they went on this podcast, dude said some like really off the wall shit, and then James proceeded to go ahead and belittle the black women of Atlanta, like saying there's no attractive black women down there, like he had heard all this, that, and the other, blah blah blah, like just completely unnecessary. Um, Felt the need to tear down this entire demographic. And
Hmm.
so my only advice, and I feel this goes for everybody, is don't put yourself in situations where you can't speak your mind, because their
Hmm.
apology came down to this though, like, oh, we were there and then the host said some shit, and then you never know how you're going to react when you're in the moment until you're in the moment, and I was just going along with it and blah 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 blah. I'm like, you as a grown ass man should never put yourself in a situation where you just have to go along with it.
Yep.
Like, and I feel like that goes just across the board. Like, if you are in a place, and you really need to do some serious kind of self-examination where even if you are put in that situation where you just lay down and agree with some stuff that's clearly off the wall and problematic, like, why didn't you have the courage to be like, no, you're wrong and this is why?
And
Or
squash it right there.
even if you agree with it, you should have the clarity to know that this is not something that I should be any part of. So you can be like, you know what, that's not really the time for this conversation, and quash it right there, right? Like make better choices to protect those that you're supposed to care about, protect those that need it. That goes, I mean, even beyond women in general. Like, looking at Diddy and all these other cases out there, like,
Yeah.
protect the people that need protecting, and don't put
Yes.
yourself into places where you're too afraid to stand for what you know is right.
Yeah.
Because once you lay down like that respect is gone. That support
Mhm.
is gone. They're never gonna have
No.
black women in their corner again. Like, you don't get it back. Like, you
Yeah.
you really don't get it back, especially when you showed who you really are. Like, people show who they really are, and black women are very, very great at seeing somebody for who they are, and they will give you plenty of chances until they finally reach that point where they just feel downright disrespected, and then it's over for you, dog. Like, it's you're cooked. And
Yep.
that's the same thing with Shannon Sharp. Like, he did all this good work with Monique, but then like he had Megan Thee Stallion on, and he apologized for like some of the misogynistic shit he said. Then just the other day, he turned around and did the same thing where he told a black woman like, "Oh, don't you have some horse to go ride from her hair?" And it's like, sir, this is not
Bro.
1998. Like, you
It's
gotta
such
do
an elementary thing to
better.
say. It's like now Shannon, Mr. Savannah State, Mr. two-time Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer. You
Yeah,
know better. You
like,
know
you're a
better.
clown. Like, you're a clown
Yeah,
at this
whole
point.
clown.
We all know
Ugh.
Stephen A. Smith is a clown. Like, Stephen A. Smith has been tap dancing for 20 years now. Like that. But like, when you now have these people who have their own platform, right? Their own shows, their own this, that, and the other, and they still go out there and make these decisions. It's like, I can't respect it.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't put myself in a place where I even had to pretend to respect it. Like, for what, you know?
yeah,
Uh, but, that comes down to how I was brought up, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Like, I would
Period.
never, like, my mom always taught me, like, you can say anything you want to anyone you want as long as you say it the right way.
Yep.
And, like, that is something that has held true my entire life. So, all y'all have to do is just choose your words better. It's really not even that hard. Like, it's really, really not. So,
I
yeah, do
agree.
better. Don't put yourself in situations where you even have to
Apologize.
diminish yourself, right? Like,
Yeah,
don't put yourself in a place exactly where you have to say you're sorry. Just don't do the dumb shit in the
yeah.
first place. Like,
Absolutely.
be better.
Absolutely. Madison?
That's a really good answer. That's so responsible. I, however, still reserve the right to choose violence. I, like, I'll put your ass outside. I'm not even, like, um, I'm sorry, but like, um, some situations I gotta put hands on you. I don't want to put hands on you, but I have to put hands on you. I'm not saying I'm gonna win. That's not even the point. That's not
It's
even the
the
point.
fact that I went there.
I ain't gonna lay
I
down.
have to. I have to put hands on you, and I don't want to, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do this now. Um, I don't know. And I guess that's just maybe some of my own just experience, just like moving through life. Speaking, that like, um, working in like security positions, working, door shifts, those kinds of things where you're asked to be responsible for an entire event or like group of people. That like it's like maximum dad mode where you're like, I'm watching all of you,
Yeah.
right? What's that going on over there? Yo, yo, yo. Why is she breathing funny? Like, I mean, those kinds of things, like being able to make those kind of decisions. And that part of that is also recognizing that like sometimes I gotta step in and put hands on somebody and just remove you. You're
Yeah.
done. Thank you. Good night. That's
Hmm.
it. That's a wrap. No, no, no. There's no conversation at this point. I don't care what you have to say about this. You're done. We're done. And if you want to swing and whatever, that is what it is. But like, if you're acting like a bitch and you beat my
Treat you
ass,
like a bitch.
no, 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 you're still a bitch. You know what I mean?
Yo.
like, like, so like I said, it's not
That's
about,
great.
but it's not about winning. That's not the point. But like, sometimes you got to step up and we got to like put hands and like, and so I always reserve the right that like, I think we had a conversation where it's like, oh, do we have to roll up? Like, who we have to call?
Yeah. We did
Like,
we did have that conversation, didn't we?
and sometimes
Yeah.
that is what it is.
Yep.
Because I know that also sometimes just being there and being a firm hand is exactly what corrects some of this behavior. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That like confrontation, testing those boundaries, like
Right.
that's real. And the fact that to me that's what that sounds like is like it's people wanting to test those boundaries. What can I get away with saying?
Yeah.
And if there aren't those kinds of like sometimes that kind of swift like, oh, and then I got my ass whipped for it, like, you know what I mean? Like some people have to like learn those lessons in those difficult ways. Not to say that I advocate for violence, but like
Right.
sometimes you have to choose like
Hmm. Yeah.
confrontation.
Yeah.
Confrontation is
And you speak to again, the fact that these people have said these things, and some of them have singled Black women out specifically, like Angel Reese, like Dejanay Carrington, like Shakari Richardson, and not realizing that somewhere there is a girl dad, uncle, cousin, brother that is attached to these women. So when you get called and you are called out and you're being held accountable, you have to hold yourself accountable for what it is and for what has been said. And I think that's the thing that isn't, and again, it goes back to no one sees us like this. You know what I mean? Like just like what you said, Ryan, like, whoa, you're not gonna talk to my daughter crazy. Like you're just not. Like there have been situations in my life, and I know I said we're gonna wrap up and we are, where I will never forget this. I was walking home in the 7th grade, and there were these boys, they took my gym bag and they threw my brand new all white K Swisses down a sewer drain. So Ryan, your face is priceless. I ran home. My dad was home.
Arson. Like,
But
arson is the
no, listen. My daddy was home. I come in there crying. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? They took my gym bag. Where are your shoes? In the sewer. Get in the car. My dad, and y'all know Larry Johnson. You have met Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson jumped in his Ford Expedition, Eddie Bauer edition. Them boys was still there. Pulled up on the curb. Which one of y'all took my daughter's shoes? And they all tried to run. Nope. My father, and I know the boy that did it. You see, we're Facebook friends. Made him uncover the manhole. 2 of the other boys, my dad made them get down there and get my damn shoes.
Good.
And basically said, next time, it won't be as pretty and I won't be as nice, but y'all gonna leave my daughter alone. And it's funny because a few years ago, one of those boys reached out to me and said, we really treated you terribly and we should have protected you and been nicer to you. And I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's when you only see this black body and you don't attach all of those things that we represent to it, when we aren't seen as human and attached to others, that's when people really think that they can disrespect us. And so I feel like that moment is going to come for these people and other people that have been disrespectful. And it's either going to come in the fact that they're not going to have any more follows, just like what Madison said, they're going to get canceled, or someone's just going to step up and be like, okay, cool. So I heard you were talking about her. You can talk to me. You know what I mean? Yep, exactly. All right. Well, this was a really great conversation. And I also think, too, we can have so many more conversations about various different things. I already have some notes in my head. So before we wrap up, though, I want to make sure people know where they can find you. And I will be linking your past episodes of Drink with Friends to this podcast. So, Ryan, would you like to go first and let people know where they can find you?
I mean, I'm out here. I'm out here in these internet streets, but for the most part, at this point, lurk. I sit back and I'm on Twitter at ThatGuyRy, where at this point, though, it really is just basketball hot takes and talking trash about the douchebags in video games that are mad at women being main characters. So I'm out here protecting women really in these digital streets, like by calling people stupid every chance I get. But otherwise, I'm still drawing pictures and whatnot. I'll have something new in a little bit. So I'll kick you that information, Emily, and they can find me there. But yeah, otherwise, go back, listen to those old episodes of Drinks with Friends and Strictly for My Neighbors when we brought in a third host. There's definitely some gems in there. So yeah.
Absolutely. Madison?
Enjoy these silky baritones.
Yes. You can check me out on IG, Emperor Madison Ray. You can kind of follow what's going on with our shenanigans, just living life, doing the thing, living a creative life. If you want to follow the business side, check out The Finesse Music on Instagram, thefinessemusic.com. If you want to check out what the new shows are coming up, we got some music coming out. Getting ready for the holiday season, so we about to, get it funky, get it popping.
Love it.
So, yeah. So check it out and let me know if you love it. And if you don't, okay, that's fine.
You'll love it. I am definitely going to link your music too, because you are so talented. And then Ryan, your artistry. I mean, I could gush over you guys like for another hour, but I know we're
We
old and
appreciate
we
it.
all want to go to bed. So
No. I've got time.
I mean, I gotta get my kids to bed, but other
Next
than that,
episode.
yeah.
All right, yeah. So
Right.
we're gonna take a short break and I will come back at the to end the episode, give you final thoughts, and do a sneak peek. So I'll be back. I feel like that episode had so many good nuggets on advocating for Black women, but also personal stories about things that have happened to us, whether it be in adolescence or in adulthood, like parenthood. So, um, I I I really enjoyed re-listening to that episode as I was preparing this for you guys. And before I go any further, a big shout out to Ryan and Madison. Again, I have known these gentlemen since I was a kid. And if there is one thing for sure, two things for certain, they are going to stand 10 toes down in their beliefs and the reasons why they advocate for Black women because of the Black women that are attached to their lives. I think that that is incredibly important. And um, I really appreciated this conversation um, because something I talked about a little bit is that often the world doesn't see us for what we are, and the fact that Black women are everything to everyone. Like, we are daughters, we're sisters, we're cousins, we're aunties, we're mothers, we're wives, we are coworkers, friends, godmothers. I mean, we have so many hats, and we have really made it a point to not only uplift ourselves, but uplift our families. And when we even are uplifting ourselves, we're bringing people along with us. And one thing that I really loved about this episode is how Ryan and Madison, a lot of their friendship is based off of a shared experience that they had growing up. They were both raised by educated, talented Black women in single parent homes. So I think when Ryan said, I didn't want to make my mom's life harder, that speaks volumes, because he knew he knew at a young age there were already things that his mother was going through that if he were to start acting up or messing up, it's going to have a greater impact on her than anything. And I absolutely love that. Um, and, Madison spoke to the fact that there was a village, so it wasn't just, and they both spoke to this. It wasn't just their mothers, it was grandmothers. It was all of these other Black women that were interconnected. And then when you start getting older, some of those Black women, they start to become your friends, right? Because they're all at the same age. And I remember one thing about Madison and Ryan is that even when we were in school, they always made sure that they were seen as those protectors, those safe spaces for us, especially for me. And I think that's probably why they got some of my mixtapes, which I still think is just super funny. But honestly, the DJ M. John mixtape era is just something that can never be recreated, I think. And I'm pretty sure that's why my parents' gateway computer crashed in the mid to late 2000s. So I'm pretty sure that's what that is. um, but I also think too that another thing that they spoke on is about the media and how everyone needs something to argue about. Everybody needs to be on one side or the other, right? Either you are VP Harris or former President Trump. Either you are Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese. It's wild. And it's almost like you always have to pick a side, and there can be no neutral ground. But you always have to pick a side. And it's really interesting because the idea of neutral ground, I don't necessarily think it's mediocrity. I think the idea of neutral ground in some of these situations is complacency. So, for example, when we're talking about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Dejanay Carrington and all of these other players that are enveloped in this whole thing with the WNBA, and then the WNBA finally coming out with a statement saying that racism and all stuff has no business in the WNBA, right? They didn't make that statement until after Caitlin Clark was out of the playoffs with the Indiana Fever. So again, the WNBA is attempting to be neutral on a topic because of how it impacts one player versus how it impacts a league that is majority made up of Black women. The advocacy only happens when a woman that doesn't look like us is getting some type of backlash. And I think for me, that is why I'm exhausted. That's why I'm tired. That's why I don't understand why it is that instead of uplifting like we are expected to do, others aren't doing it. And we've seen, there were so many other examples of this that I could have talked about with Ryan and Madison. One that does also come to mind is a few weeks ago, Cam Newton on his podcast, Funky Fridays, he had Dr. Cheyenne Bryant on. And I think I got through about 30 minutes of that 2-hour podcast interview where I just had to shut it off. And the reason is because Cam Newton was not ready for Dr. Bryant to come in with the knowledge that she had based on not only her educational background, but on the life that she had already lived and the life that she's living now. And people after that said she was too harsh on Cam. She made him look bad and all this and the other. But again, if you don't have a certain level of respect or understanding about something, you're gonna come out looking like an ass. It was a missed opportunity, I think, for Cam, just like it was a missed opportunity when Shannon Sharp told Amanda Seales that her thinking that the teacher didn't like her because she was Black was wrong. Well, how do you know that? What we have to stop doing is making Black women prove why they feel the way they feel. That is the number one thing I'm getting tired of. So when someone comes to me and says, you know what, Em, this person made me feel hurt. They made me feel sad. They made me feel dumb, stupid, whatever. It is not my responsibility to invalidate somebody's feelings. It is my responsibility to show empathy to that person and to make sure that they understand that what they are telling me, it will be taken seriously. And also, I am a safe space to say these things. And you know what? I think after thinking about these instances, talking with Madison and Ryan, I am really starting to realize there are not many safe spaces for Black women to speak. And because of that, there aren't many people that are willing to protect us. And I think it's because we have been dehumanized, we have been disrespected, we have been seen almost as if we are caricatures. And I feel like that's a lot of that is in how our society programs us to think. And having this conversation with Madison and Ryan is another reason why this podcast exists in the first place. If there is one thing I'm not going to do on this podcast is have a Black woman or anybody come onto my show and feel vulnerable enough to tell me their story, and I sit there and I argue it. And I am disrespectful. Perfect example is how Shannon Sharp let Monique and Megan Thee Stallion come and say their piece. He even apologized to Megan Thee Stallion for the things that he had said about her previously. And then again, Amanda Seales comes on, and that same empathy that he had for those two women, he didn't have for her. I feel like I don't have many safe spaces. But what I will say is, if there's one thing Black women are going to do, we are going to create what the world doesn't want us to have. And in this instance, I have created this podcast. There are other Black women in the community around me that have created safe spaces for Black women to go and just be, and to be vulnerable, and to laugh, and to cry, and to dance, and to sing, and to even just be angry. Those places exist. I asked Ryan and Madison, well, what they would say to an Uncle Shannon, what they would say to a Fuhad and James, to a Stephen A, to a Cam Newton, or to any other broadcast bro that is out there speaking ill on Black women. And I started to think, well, what would I say to them? And I would honestly say that as someone that had a lot of respect for these men at some point, like, to me, Cam Newton is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks the NFL has ever seen. Shannon Sharp crawled for Travis Kelce, for George Kittle, for Mike Evans. He crawled so they can walk. The tight end game was revolutionized by Shannon Sharp. Stephen A is one of those people where he has gotten to do one thing his entire career, and that is be his authentic self. I would encourage these men to think about where they are now, and had there not been Black women behind them as they got to these points, where would they be now? I feel like a lot of the time what happens is when you get out in the world and you start living your own life and doing the things that you want to do, you stop thinking about how you got there. And I feel like if these men who have said these things had really thought about the women that have been behind them all of these years, the women that have been supporting them, for example, like, I'm a fan, right? And I think that if they were to honestly think about those things, they would think differently. And that would be my words of advice, is that you guys have an incredible platform, and the fact that you are using it to disparage women whom already don't have many safe spaces and just want to live and be left alone is actually incredibly shameful. And again, this is why I'm exhausted. And again, I'm happy that I was able to have this conversation. And thank you for listening to this conversation and to this episode. This was a really fun one. I really hope to have Ryan and Madison back, as I know we can talk about more Black things happening in Iowa and what our experiences were like. But that's going to wrap up this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more Black Girl Iowa, a couple of ways that you can find me. You can find me on Instagram at Black Girl Iowa. Check out my blog, my website, www.blackgirliowa.com. Don't forget to pick up your merch, Black Girl Iowa shop on Etsy. And yes, I will be back next week with a fresh episode. I am talking to the one and only Christine Johnson, aka Chef Joppa, that is located right here in Des Moines, Iowa. She will be opening up her storefront soon, but she does pop-up, she does catering, she does it all, and I am so excited for you guys to hear our conversation next week. So thank you again. Be sure to take care of yourselves, stay blessed, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Bye.